Welcome to Stay Sparked. On this show, we explore how to stay inspired in the modern world with the most profound lessons from Burning Man, psychedelics, relationships, entrepreneurship, spirituality, travel, and more. On today's episode, we talked about entrepreneurship and finding our way off the beaten path and some of the risks and rewards of that journey.
We shared about following our hearts and following the muse on our journey of becoming non-9-to-5ers and shared some of our deep personal stories on how we got to be where we are.
And we also get into recognizing opportunities that are always approaching us, and how do we go about being our authentic selves, following the sparks that lead us into living the lives that we are wanting to live for ourselves, and how to be best of service to the world around us.
Thank you, Dub Sutra, for that beautiful intro song. We are so grateful to be here sharing with you today on the topic of our non-9-to-5 lifestyles, courageous entrepreneurship. I'm Betsy FINKLEHOO, and I'm here with John Halcyon and JANUS REDMOON. We are here to spark you. So let's start off with some gratitude. Halcyon, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, I am grateful for a beautiful First Saturdays experience this weekend. Every first Saturday of the month, I have a homeless outreach in San Diego. And there was a number of just beautiful things that happened. One was, there was a gentleman that was having a little bit of a struggle, someone cut in front of him in line. And then later I found him, I go, hey, how's it going? How's the patients? And he kind of laughed and goes, you should, check those purses before you put them out to donate. And I'm like, did you get something good? He goes, some French coins, some euros, and over $150 in bills. And I was like, yes! It was like victory. I think there was a minute he was like, are you going to take it back? And I was like, so excited for him. And it's like, so I'm grateful for this unexpected awesomeness to a gentleman who certainly could use a break.
Nice.
Amazing. How about you, Janus? What are you grateful for today?
I am grateful. I may have been grateful for my friends in the past, but I'm grateful for them again, just because having a lot of good friends show up for me in some really good ways over the last several days to offer some things that I didn't know I needed. Whether that's assistance or time or what have you. Things have been I've been feeling very very loved and supported by my friends and community. So that's been a really nice, similar to John's, gratitude experience. But yeah, being on the receiving end of some real goodness this week has been nice. So yeah, definitely feeling grateful for that.
Amazing. I will just piggyback off of that. I also am really grateful for friends. Starting with you guys, how cool that we have been getting to come together and share in this wonderful exploration of conversation. So grateful for you guys, and also really grateful for our listeners out there. We've been getting some really great feedback from you guys, and it's just so wonderful for us to hear your reflections and your little messages just light me up. And I'm just really grateful that we're getting to connect with you guys out there listening through this platform. So here we go.
Thank you, everyone who has also told a friend about it. And a big kind of push, if you're up for it, leave us a review. It helps other people find us, because I do think we're putting good stuff out there. And it's helpful if you leave us a review and tell others. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So today our conversation is inspired by how the three of us really live non-traditional, non-9-to-5 lives. And many people out there have asked us, how did we get here? And it's our inspiration to share today on this topic around how we live our lives and how we got here. So how about we start with you, Halcyon? How long have you been a non-9-to-5er, and have you always been this way? What insight can you share with us today?
No, I actually, excuse me, I began post-college with a degree in psychology and went traditional work, 9-to-5 type jobs, or at least, set hours, set punching in, punching out. And then when the internet hit, I continued to be a 9-to-5er or strict hours for tech companies until eventually I realized that I had enough skills and awareness and that I could go out on my own and become a consultant. So that was my first on my own, was being a consultant and working with firms, and then being able to set the times and pick the projects and the people that I wanted to work with. And then after a while of doing what I wanted and getting more and more free, I got an offer to join a startup and become their culture person. And actually what happened was the CEO had gone to Burning Man right after he got 10 million in funding, and had been watching my videos about Burning Man. And when he went to Burning Man, it changed his life. And so he said, I have to have this guy to help me build this company. So I got recruited as a co-founder of a startup, and with the goal of bringing in some of this non-traditional concepts and ideas and gifting and into a corporate culture. And so I did that for 2 years, went back to wearing the clothes, going into the office on time. And it was an experiment, because like, can you bridge these two worlds? And I'll just say I was only there for 2 years, and now I'm back to freedom. So maybe we can talk more about that later. But I've kind of gone back and forth right now. By very much in a picking my schedule, picking my projects, deciding where my passions go.
Amazing. Love hearing a little back history. I'd love to see some pictures of you from those days in your suits. Amazing.
Yeah.
How about you, Janus?
I would say that entrepreneurship is something that came to me pretty early, although like Halcyon, I would kind of dip in and out of it. Just because sometimes, getting those, 9-to-5 jobs is in some ways easier, but it kind of gets you on the back end. At least that's my experience with it. But early on, even in college, I got a job that required me to wear a tie to work, and I lasted, and it was a good job too, but a good job, but I lasted all of a week, because every day that I was putting on that tie, I mean, not to be hyperbolic about it, but it just kind of felt like I was fitting myself for a noose every morning. And I was just like, God, and the whole, so by Friday, I was just like, I was a mess. And I was young too. It was 20 or whatever. And I was just like, after that 5 days, I was like, I cannot do this. So, over the course of the next few years, I found myself in California working as a fitness trainer, which was great. Shorts and a t-shirt or tank top, go to the gym and help people get in shape and all that. And got to do that on my own time, kind of have my own business doing that. So I was setting my own hours, and that's when it really kind of got me in, just the idea of although I would do it later as well, just depending on how life kind of unfolded, the idea of okay, any gig or employment where I don't have to come in and punch a clock, I'm able to set my own time, that I realized was a real vital component of my happiness. So even when I would have to do that on occasion, I was always an eye to be all right, this is a means to an end. I need to get back to, that sense of, creating my own schedule, my own, there's a large sizable feeling of freedom that would come with that for me. So that was so that's been my focus for a long time, just to kind of keep that my eyes on that prize, and kind of just live a life of entrepreneurship that way, which has led me to where I'm at these days, so which we can get into later.
Amazing. What a journey.
Yeah, it's been a good one. So
what about you, Betsy?
Yeah.
Well, thinking back, I remember when I was a teenager in high school, and there was this path laid out for me that was laid out for pretty much everyone I knew. That was, growing up in Ohio, it's okay, you're going to graduate, and then you're going to apply for college, and you're going to go to college for 4 years, and then you're going to get a job, and you're going to do this thing that everybody does, right? And you get married, and you have your kids, and you're going to do this American lifestyle. And I remember having this sort of skepticism about it, and kind of staying curious around wait a second, is this the only thing that we get to do? Is this what we're supposed to do it? But I don't know how I feel about it. So I started going down that path. The situation I was in, my school was getting paid for by my dad. And so I, went along with what he wanted for me. And while I was going to school, I was going to Kent State University in Ohio. And year 3, I was going through the motions of what every, young, early 20-year-old was doing. And all of a sudden, something shifted in the financial component of going to school, and I started to have to pay for it myself. And in that moment, it seemed like a challenge. I was like, I don't want to have to pay for school. How am I supposed to pay for school? And I realized, oh, wait a second. Wait, if I have to pay for it, then I can do whatever I want. I don't actually have to keep going to this school. And so I saw it as an opportunity to try a different path. And so I decided to follow my heart and went to a massage school because I have always loved touch and I love massage therapy. My aunt was a massage therapist. I was always curious about it. I packed up my car in Ohio with everything that I owned, and I drove across the country to Arizona to go to a school that I found for massage therapy. And that was, I think, the spark of it. And I really learned so much about following my own joy, my own freedom, and recognizing that there's always a choice. Throughout the years, I have found myself in certain positions where I have to clock in and clock out. And I have that similar feeling that you, Janus, spoke to around, like some contraction. Every time I would have to like punch in and punch out, there was just something that just, I don't know. My nervous system or something just didn't feel right. And so over the years, I have found different ways to be able to share my passion for my art, for my healing work, and have had multiple businesses over the years and have created this lifestyle for myself to not have to punch in, which feels really good. Feels really like a lot of freedom. It's scary because you just never know. And there's, a lot of responsibility, but there's also, like I was speaking to, my nervous system feels much more relaxed. And I don't have to do these things that are so structured.
Yeah. I'd love to talk to what you said about that choice, that really courageous choice you made of following your heart, and stepping away from the path that has been given to you and been kind of embedded into us, most of us, through all sorts of socialization. I remember after visiting Burning Man for the first time, and I know everything I say at some point starts with, "Oh yeah, I learned this at Burning Man," but that's just the way it is. So and I remember witnessing all these different ways that people were living, all these different types of making a living and career paths that just never occurred to me that you could do these things. Like, there'd be like, "Oh yeah, I work for a few months and then I travel for a few months," or something like, "Oh, well, I sell a few things here." And then I'm like, what? And I always thought that like life was like a freeway and you pick a lane, you're either a white collar job or a blue collar job or a stay at home dad. Like, you pick one of the lanes that's assigned to you. And I realized that life is more like a lake. You can go whatever direction. That it doesn't have to be a path that's ever been there before. And that was such a big awakening for me. And I think that I just want to also add that we're all talking about this kind of specific entrepreneurship, no clocking in, super freedom, but sometimes following your heart can lead you to work with a team and a project that is very structured, but it is still super aligned with your heart. And I've had experiences like that as well, because there's all sorts of wonderful things about being in a structured environment where you have a team and you day after day, you're like working with people that are inspiring you and you're learning from and pushing you. And yes, you give up freedom in that situation, but there is much to be gained, I think, as well. And ideally, one of the benefits of kind of trying out different office situations or work situations is you learn how things are done and you learn skills from people, and you learn there are ways the world of capitalism works that really helps if you get exposed to them and you get to witness them, so that you have some experience and not so naive as you're trying to compete, because that's what capitalism is. You're competing in some way, trying to get resources. But if you can witness how things are done, it really gives you an advantage when you start doing things for yourself.
Yeah. That's true. And I think that's an important point, is the idea that one isn't necessarily better than the other. There's a lot of people I know, and I've actually had, some jobs back in the day that required me to clock in, so to speak, that really weren't that bad, that were actually inspiring. And I actually enjoyed that time there. What works for me best, I found, is being my own boss and doing, following that track. But one is not inherently better than the other. It's the important thing is to find what works for you, and go with that and follow that, and follow that muse, follow your heart in that way, like you did, Betsy, heading to that felt good for you. And I'm sure there's a lot of an aspect of that was unknown at the time and kind of scary, but I feel like I kind of say this almost every episode, but you're never going to go wrong following your heart. And if your heart is leading you in that direction, and even to all right, steady 40-hour a week, 9 to 5, that feels good to me, by all means do that. But sometimes that means you got to load up the car and drive to Arizona. So yeah.
So true. And, just to kind of echo what our last call was about, was continuous evolution, right? Becoming new and evolving ourselves, right? It's this is something that I'm getting to do right now. And who knows, maybe in some years from now, I'm going to feel my heart is calling me to a 9 to 5. There's always changing. Yeah. And I love what you shared too, is one is not better than the other. It's really about, what feels right for each of us. And one of the things that has really helped me on my journey is asking the question to myself, to my higher self, what is the next phase of my creative evolution or my service in the world, right? The concept of service. That's what really fuels me. It's where can I share my gifts with the world in the highest and best ways? And sometimes that might be through a clothing line, right? I had a clothing line for a long time, or that might be through massage therapy, or maybe one day I'm going to be guided to, work in a lab somewhere. I don't know, but just continue to listen to the guidance that I'm feeling from my heart by asking that question.
So you're right. That is the theme of this show, over and over and over again, listening to your heart and having the courage to listen to it. And I think that, that is one of the things that draws us together. And I think is that we've all followed paths that involve taking some risks and following our hearts, and then get to see the rewards of that, and also see the struggles that sometimes that takes. It's not an effortless flow. It is listening to the call, and then, or finding the direction the current is pulling you, and then paddling really hard in that direction. You can get places just going with the flow, but I think that to get to a place where you're I am being of service and bringing my gifts in a way that is fully satisfying, giving me peace. You gotta put your effort behind your passions and follow your heart, and that can put you in a really inspiring place. Which I think is another thing that can be fuel, is when you recognize that you following your truth has an impact of inspiring others to do so too, regardless of the income you're bringing in. It is really powerful to be around people and witness people who are having the courage to drive to Arizona.
I think, and I think an important part of the process, if not the very first part of that process, and it kind of applies to so many areas of life, is realizing that, or making sure that the choices you're making are your choices. There is a lot of socialization, indoctrination, for want of a better term, programming that we undergo as children through school and even in young adulthood. Like Betsy was saying, okay, this is your track. This is what you do. School, work, marriage, kids, the whole bit. And we get to think, oh yeah, this is what I want. But I think we have to wake up to a certain point of our adulthood, and there's no perfect time to do this, but I think it's important that we do it, is really sit back and be okay, is this my choice? Am I just following somebody's track or some idea that was instilled in me to the point that I actually feels like it's my idea? What is my idea really? What would I really choose for myself? And oftentimes, that initial realization is a mystery. Like, we don't know because we don't really know ourselves yet. But again, this applies in so many directions, like this, the ideas of like what our preferences are, like in all realms, and then coming to answers and living your life, discovering what those answers are for yourself, which might be like, I like where I'm at. This is a good gig, or I need more. I need different. I need something else, and that might prompt you to make a big move, that might prompt you to really be like, no, I'm going to root down here, really create a life in this spot where I just happen to be born and grow up in. That's fine, as long as it's your choice. So I think that is an essential process, and it's got to come pretty early in whatever, when we start to formulate a plan for ourselves. Making sure that our choices are our own is key.
And I would even say that it's not a juncture in your life when you do it. There's a time in your life when you begin, and then you continue the process of checking in over and over and over again of like, wait, is this desire coming from inside me, or is this something that has come from the outside? Mm-hmm. And it is not simple. I mean, you might be following and doing something for years and then go, wait a minute, this is what I witnessed my dad do. And so I assume that's what people who earn respect do, but it's not what I want to do, or it isn't. Like that kind of awareness of, oh, this is external, I think is something that you work on and chip away for the rest of your life.
Yes, this is true.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love to speak on that. And I love where this conversation is going, right? How do we pivot? Right? If you have been living a life for many years that is not in alignment to what you truly want, I think I can relate to that. I've been in that situation before where I have felt stuck and go like, whoa, how did I get here? All of a sudden I'm like living this identity that doesn't feel true for who I am. How do I pivot? And I think you spoke so beautifully to that, Halcyon. It's not always taking a huge leap, one big leap, but a series of small shifts, right? I think I spoke to this book last week, Atomic Habits, right? These tiny little micro shifts that we can make within ourselves and our lives to be able to, pivot, right, into the next phase of who we are becoming, right? And if that has to do with your work in the world, then slowly starting to make shifts and adjustments, starting to open up perspective around other options, right? I think that's a really beautiful way to do it. And I feel like there is something also to be said around having the courage, to be able to look within, right? As you were saying, Janus, right? Where are these beliefs coming from? Where is this, these thoughts coming from? Is this my own, or is this coming from somewhere else? I think that really is a very courageous path to go deep inside yourself to inquire around who you are and what is the life that we're living.
Yep.
I'll just share a little more details of what a big shift for me early. I graduated in psychology, honors, all ready to head to grad school. So then I went to go work as a counselor at a group home with emotionally disturbed boys for a couple of years to get experience before I went to grad school, because of course I got to go up the ladder. You got to get as high as possible. And while working at the group home, I was miserable. It was so difficult. It was so soul crushing. It broke my heart. I cried every morning before work on my way to work. And eventually, my parents were supportive, and they gave me as a gift a trip to a career counselor, and where they asked me, what brings you joy? And the only thing I was enjoying at the time was I was making a zine, a little like Xeroxed magazine. This is before the internet, so I'm aging myself. So I would write stories and comics and then mail it to people who requested it. And I was loving the creative output. And I said, that's the only thing that I'm enjoying. And so through this like exercises of like, well, what if I end up quitting my job, leaving this path that I'd been on my whole life of better, more. And I went back to junior college to take design classes and how to use a Macintosh for page layout and stuff like that. And then while there, and this was a huge thing, like my dad is you have opportunity, you take it, there's no way you would go backwards, and going to junior college was a step backwards. And while I was in junior college, I worked at a call center. One day I got called into the office. They found my zine because I passed it around the call center. Like, is this yours? And I'm like, yes. They go, do you want to answer phones for a living? You seem like a really creative person. And I'm like, no. They said, because we keep hearing about this thing called the internet. And we were thinking that maybe you could figure out what it is, put your little magazine on the internet. And then once you know what it is, you can make us a company homepage. And I was like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about, but that sounds awesome. Totally changed my life. I ended up being in the internet space way early, which allowed me then to become a consultant later and become an entrepreneur. But if I didn't let go of the path I was on, I never would have found my way to my place and my purpose and what has lit me up for the rest of my life.
And
I love that so
yeah,
much.
that's fantastic. And that moves me to want to push back against the idea of a step back. It's like when you're going, so okay, so
yes.
Gosh, do I have to go back to school? I already did that. What am I doing with my life? No. It is all a means to an end. Like if that feels like, okay, I need to do this thing that I already did in order for me to then bounce from that. Like there's a bounce from a lot of these things that we do in our life to, like, you know, if I do I need to move back to Ohio to do something? But if that's going to lead you to the next thing and that feels like a proper step, that is a move forward. So I understand the idea of like seizing opportunity, absolutely, but opportunity comes in like wears a lot of different costumes, wears a lot of different outfits. So it's important to frame it and be like, okay, so this is a step in a direction, not backwards. That's going to allow me to get to where I want to get to.
It's like a labyrinth.
Well, and what you just did is you helped me to do what we just talked about of evaluating, was this from the outside or the inside? That narrative that I just retold, which I've told before many times, is that I took a step back. That is based on an external story that I had ingested and never really kind of questioned in the way that you just did. So we just live helped me break through something. Thank you.
All right. Beautiful.
Fantastic.
It's like a labyrinth. Have you guys ever walked a labyrinth?
Yes.
It looks like a maze, but there's only one way. Right. And when you're getting closer and closer to the center, and then all of a sudden the path takes you back out to the edges and it feels like you're going in the wrong way because you're trying to get to the center. But really that is the pathway to the center. Right. And so sometimes on our path, we might feel like we're lost or going the wrong way, but really there's only one way. And I love that. And I also want to highlight something you said, Halcyon, around that zine, right? When that counselor asked you, well, what is bringing you joy? And at that moment, it might have just seemed like a small thing, right? But that was the spark. That was the spark that was lighting you up. And it might have been your own little small thing, but it turned into something that really led you on your path, right? And I love that so much. So when we follow our joy and really keep following our joy, then we can watch it start to blossom and to grow in these different ways.
The other thing is that, like, I was at the time I was evaluating, like this zine seemed like something silly because I was measuring it against what the culture had value for. But if you're really ever going to find the thing that allows you to successfully be you in the world, you're going to have faith that the thing that lights you up has value, whether the culture and your family has told you so or not. And I think that there's that if you can dive in and become awesome at the thing that lights you up, you will find your market and you will find the people that will support you to do it.
Yep. Yeah. I'd love to share a little story on how that sparked for me. So as you guys know, and many of you guys that listening out there that might know me for over the last decade, I had a clothing line that was focused on upcycled clothing, so transforming clothing. And it started because I had moved to California and I was a little bit lost. I wasn't really sure if I was meant to be here, what I was doing. I was doing massage, but I was, struggling. And I met this woman who was a clothing designer, and I would go sit with her and watch her sew. I didn't know how to sew. I had a tiny little bit of sewing skills that my mom taught me at a younger age, but not really. And I would sit with her and watch her sew. And she always had these little bits of extra fabric. that she would cut off from her pieces. And so as she was using her machine, I would hand stitch these little fabric flowers. And then I started giving them away. And I was calling them Finklehoo flowers for my last name. And then I started making more of them and more of them. And people were wearing them and enjoying them and getting really excited about them. And it was lighting me up. And I kept doing that. And then eventually I was like, well, I need to follow this. And that was like the little sparkle on the pathway of building a line. I ended up getting to travel the world and sell clothing and teach people how to upcycle clothing and eco fashion. And it was a really beautiful journey. And it started with that one little spark of inspiration to stitch some fabric together. Right. And I would have never guessed that in that moment, it would have led me somewhere so far and wide.
And I would guess that well, maybe I'll ask, but when you started making the flowers, were you thinking, oh, I'm going to sell these? And I'm guessing it's like, this is fun. And then people like it. And then that lights you up. And then it leads to places where it becomes, potential work and stuff. But I think I caution people about making your decisions about your passion at the same time that you're making your business plan. Like if you're listening to your landlord and your muse at the same time, often the landlord will win, and you won't be creating what you truly want to create. Mm-hmm. So take that a step back. Like people often ask me, like they say, I want to quit my job and make wired jewelry full time. And I caution people about that. I think that there is a place of having a traditional job that doesn't take all your energy away, that allows you to have the time and the space and the energy really to continue making things exactly as you want to. Because if you need money from your art to pay your bills, you will create art that people want to buy. You will go to, like, let's say you go to a street art thing, and the person next to you has a bunch of Disney mice in their paintings, and so everyone's buying them. No one's buying your paintings. Next month, you're like, God, if I added a few characters, someone might buy it. And when you get into that trap, you might pay your bills, but then you've lost the magic that is your potential, I think. So I tell people to try to find, before you quit your job, see if there's things in your work that allow you to be you. So if you are having to pretend who you are all day long, that's way too much time of your life that are not able to be yourself. But if you can be yourself in your office, if you work with people that you enjoy, and if there's something in your work environment that you can hold on to, like the purpose of what they're doing, you believe in, if it's like, we're making spreadsheets more productive so that accountants can get home sooner. If you believe in that, awesome. If you don't, then you got to find another job where there's something about what you're doing that you feel good about. And then if that situation gives you the time and energy to, after work, do your wire wrapping, and then you start to sell more of them and more of them and more of them, and then you are in a position to tell your boss, hey, I only want to work 3 days a week. It's kind of it's not always a matter of pack up everything and drive to Hollywood to be an actor, in my opinion. And that's the guidance I give people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I went through that actually, after I had been making clothing for a little while, and I stopped doing massage because my massage was my main income. And then the clothing started to take off. Then all of a sudden I caught myself in a very specific moment. I was sitting down to look at all my expenses and all of everything. And I was like, all right, I need to make this many pocket belts, and I need to sell this many dresses, and I need to do this many things in order to make my rent next month. And I was like, cringe. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to make these things for these people from that place of scarcity. And it wasn't bringing me joy. Like the joy started to fade because I was having to do it. I had this pressure that I was putting on myself. And so I realized I had to find a balance and to be able to come back to that place of joyful creation, to create, not because I needed to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a story I think a lot of people can relate to. And, even if you make the choice to follow your passion, you still got to put food in the fridge. You still got to make your rent payments or more mortgage payments and such. So a lot of times our passion turns into a chore if we're not careful. So it's important you can instead, like before you, you know, quit everything and pack up the car and like move to California to become an actor or whatever that is. Try the reframing. Like, I think Halcyon touched on this. Like, try to reframe it. Okay, like this 9 to 5 or this job I have can be a means to an end. So maybe I can scale back my time doing it, which would allow me to focus on my passion and my art, as opposed to needing to like make some wire wrap jewelry, X amount of these pieces in order for me to make my rent. I can maybe keep the job that I'm doing, maybe scale back my hours, which is going to give me more time to do that. And I don't have to worry about, my bills so much. It allows me to focus on my art, my passion. So a lot of, jobby jobs, quote unquote, will allow you to do that, will allow you the freedom to be able to focus on, to follow your passion for creation. So sometimes you got to just pack it all up and make the move. But sometimes, you can do both sometimes, and that works out. So definitely weigh that as an option. If you're looking to transition into a life of entrepreneurship, it's a step-by-step process. It doesn't have to all happen at once. So just again, thinking outside the box is the way to go about that.
I've got currently I have a few projects that I make money doing that allows me to have a whole bunch of other projects that I do whatever I want with. And I love that personally. That for me is the balance that I feel good about, because then when I'm doing the whatever I want projects, I'm purely guided by what the muse is asking me to do. I don't have to do it, and that makes it fun, Whereas if I have to do it, even if it's, I mean, talk to a porn star. If you have to do it, it's not as fun. Okay, we'll edit that out. But I mean, even like we were before we started recording, we were talking about another podcast, and that has been very successful. And the hosts of that show decided to keep their day jobs because they liked the freedom of being able to do what they want and didn't want the pressure of paying their bills with this thing that they enjoyed doing.
It's a way to stay inspired and motivated. And I feel like that there's also something about staying curious with it, right? Because here we are in we're following our hearts by sharing here, right? And we don't know where this might take us, but we know that we are staying inspired and listening. And it comes right back to our conversation last episode around evolution of who we are and listening, staying present. And I'll just keep sharing this question that has been so supportive to me. So how can I share my gifts with the world in a way that is fun, that is prosperous, that is impactful, that is joyful each day, every day? What steps can I take today that I can share my light, share my gifts with the world in a way that is all of those things and more?
And I feel it's what leads from that is, the idea, like if you look at a lot of stories of entrepreneurship, for example, or people who are kind of doing their own thing, it's a lot of times that is born from something happening in their world that could have gone any multiple different directions. But a lot of making this choice for yourself and leading this sort of life, it comes down to what you do with it. The idea that big things have small beginnings. So, from someone giving Betsy like shards of pieces of fabric to do well with whatever you want to do with them, fine. So, and with no idea that that's going to lead to what it led to. But there's an opportunity there. There's the opportunities we're surrounded by opportunities every day, really. And so it's kind of recognizing like, okay, this is an opportunity, even if it feels like something that's happened to you. There's an opportunity in there. So it all really comes down to what you do with it, what you choose to do with it, making sure that it's your choice, and then following that. It almost inevitably leads to something good. So really kind of being open to following that muse and following what's wanting to be created now, what can be created now, and figuring out what feels good and then doing that thing.
I think another thing that I think is helpful is to really check in and figure out what's important to you, because the beginning of this path is going to require sacrifice of some sort. One of my early internet projects, I had a webcam-based community, and the bubble of 2000 collapsed, and so our funding dropped. And so to keep the project going, I moved into the webcam house that was a part of the project, and I allowed people to watch me shower and live my life for a couple of years. Now, it was also an artistic choice, and I wanted to do it, but like, I made no money. You know, I had to live off my savings. I got free rent because I let people watch me shower, but to me, like, that was an easy choice to continue to follow a dream project that had me lit up. I didn't need money. I would find other ways to cut costs. I would find other ways to survive in hopes that, you know, we would find a way for the project to work. But, you know, you really got to check in, like, what can I live without? How am I willing to push myself in ways that maybe I couldn't? That's one of the things that I think is a real benefit of entrepreneurship is if you are someone who is afraid to pick up the phone, you're going to get in a decision like, I have to fucking pick up the phone. Like, I got to make this happen, you know? And I think that but you got to be ready and maybe have a support network and group of people that can help you to deal with the challenges, the sacrifices, and the difficult stuff that is part of it. And it's part of why you choose it. You're like, what kind of life do I want to live? I want to look back and go, all right, I was a hero of this awesome epic myth. And that takes making a lot of choices and having a lot of courage.
And
absolutely, well said.
It requires a bit of support as well. It's real easy. It took me a while to kind of get my head around it. I'm still actually working on it. You know, the saying that, you know, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. If you have it's a lot easier. It's exponentially easier for you to get to this idea where you're going if you have a team, if you have some support going on, like people who are aligned with what you are doing, or at least resonate with what you're doing and are okay, how can I support that? Or maybe we can do this together, and being open to the idea of collaboration. Like, okay, I've got my idea of what I'm trying to do, but some input from somebody else who I know or trust or what have you it might take it in a different direction, but that different direction could be better. Could be better for you, could be better for the world. So being open to collaboration, allow the world to, you know, bestow upon you some, you know, what you need in order to, you know, a friend of mine said to me once that the universe has a better imagination than we do. So allow us to be, you know, led and be shown a direction to be like, no, you can do this. And that's awesome if you're going to do that on your own, but bring some people into that, and then like, watch what can happen, watch what unfolds. So the idea of the spirit of collaboration is going to be highly beneficial to almost all of us with whatever path towards entrepreneurship or moving away from the 9-to-5 lifestyle can bring to us. So
yes, masterminding too.
Get a team, yeah.
Right. Having a team or just being in the conversation with other people who are also on the path. The masterminding, I know, has been a huge catalyst to the belief in myself, right? Having other people around me to fan my flames and for me to fan their flames has been such an important part of the journey, right? Because you're right, we don't have to do it alone. Whether we're building our own personal team with our own business or just having a team of people around us to support is so valuable. You're so right on. That's a huge spark right there, Janus. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Yeah, and the idea real quick, you know, it kind of goes back to the notion of things that, you know, might be interpreted as happening to us, you know, can kind of happen for us. And it kind of all depends on how you, you know, what you do with it. The company that I got right now is a nutritional supplement company. And that was born out of me having some issues with like executive dysfunction or executive function disorder, however you want to phrase it. and not wanting to get on any meds for that, but like, okay, how can I deal with this or treat this like, holistically or nutritionally, and finding ways to do that. We have mushrooms and, herbs and amino acids, and really diving into that research for like 3 years and coming up with a concoction of a blend of nutrients that really worked for me. And I had some friends who were like, wow, you seem like you're doing better. And I'm like, I am, because I'm doing this thing. It's like, oh, that sounds like that could be good for my dad or good for my wife, or so could I try some of those or whatever? I'm like, sure. Because I'm just making these capsules. And so I would do that. And then I eventually started, after doing that for a few friends, I eventually started getting feedback from like people I didn't even know, but who were friends of friends, being like, hey, so-and-so told me about this thing. And that started happening enough that I was like, maybe, and I'd be happy to buy those from you. And I was like, maybe this is like a business that could be formed around this. And sure enough, it was. So for me, from being born of like wanting to take care of myself, nutritionally, that led pretty quickly to, a business being formed around that. So that I'm able to, and it feels good to not just have a business where I'm making a widget and like offering that for sale. It's like, this is this thing that's really helping people. Like it was helping myself, and it was born from the idea of just wanting to be healthier, and then realizing that this is something that could help other people be healthier as well. And that was supported, like just following that muse, following my heart. And that kind of led to, my life changing substantially for the better. So it's not what, again, it comes back to, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with it. That is key in this world of entrepreneurship. There's, opportunities abound. So just recognizing opportunity, trying it on for size, see how it fits.
I feel this parallel as you're describing your product line. For most of my life, I have been the product. And so, but it required me to be myself loudly in corporate settings initially. And so I've had pink hair in the offices that I've worked. I've been this person that I am now. And I had to, I guess, have the courage and believe in this product enough that I wasn't right for a lot of jobs. But if people figured out who I was, they would go, ooh, like often we'll make a job for you, they'll find, and that's, I think if you're going to be in office, or in a 9 to 5 or clocking in, best case scenario is you show who you really are and you're seen, and then they find and create a job for you. That's how you succeed the most. That's how you bring the most value. But that's not going to happen if you try to figure out what they want and then be that. You have to be you. And that means you're closing some doors, but the ones that will be opened, you're going to rock. And that's been my experience. People are like, how did you get to where you got? Well, by letting people see me and making sure that they knew exactly who I was. And then when the position opened for someone that there was often, my early jobs on the internet was like, this has never been done. We know that you do exploratory things. Would you give this a try? I'm like, sure. And so that just led to more and more things. But if I tried to, become the expert that, a online training told me to be, I would be exactly like 1,000 other people. And I would never have the ability to kind of forge my own way.
Absolutely. Yes. So beautiful, Halcyon. Thank you for that. And I'll also just echo some of what you shared too around following what really works for you, to be able to share that with the world. I also of getting to share something that has really helped me to rise in my level of confidence, which is affirmations, journaling, and gratitude and meditation. And so I feel so inspired to get to share what has worked for me with people that I love and with my clients, and continuing to really harness the power of what is our passion. How can we keep following what works for us and serve others? And so as we come to a close, maybe we can close it up with some of the sparks that have really helped you guys, helped all of us on our journey of entrepreneurship. I think we've spoken to many, but if you could just close us out with some of the juiciest, most sparkly sparks.
I would I would go into kind of reiterating, paying attention to what's in your life, like what's wanting to come through, what's wanting to be created. And the idea of, letting it be easy, like, it's like, there's a lot of things that will fall into your lap that just like, oh, this is just like some fabric. Cool. Like, no, what do you do with that thing? So there's always like an opportunity for, to create something. And to what Halcyon's talking about, the idea that we touch on a lot about authenticity. What's authentic to you? Like, what's like being yourself and doing what you want to do, because that's what you want to do, as opposed to trying to fit into some mold, is, in my experience, rewarded. Not you don't do it for the reward. Doing it is its own reward. But the fringe benefits of being authentic to who you are, listening to your own voice and making your own choices, the rewards for that are ginormous. So it definitely behooves us to be authentic to ourselves, let our lives be easy, and follow your heart.
Hey, I want to close with a story of a corporate story of authenticity being rewarded. When I was at the startup, we had a huge meeting with a company, a massive billion-dollar company, and I guess to take a step back, one of the things that I introduced to our corporate culture when we were forming the company is we had gratitude circles every Friday morning, all company gratitude circles. Everybody would share something they're grateful for professionally and something privately. And it was transformative what it did to our connections. So we happened to be at this meeting with this billion-dollar company on the top floor of this East Coast stuffy place on a Friday. And so as we were breaking for lunch, my CEO said, "Why don't you ask them if they want to do a gratitude circle?" We did. We started it off and we role modeled and we shared really personal things about our families and one another. And these people, they started sharing things about each other that were so deep, and they shared things about their families that I bet they never heard about from each other, even after working together for years. We flew back home to San Diego after Ventura after a full day of meetings, and then they gave us the contract. We were brand new. We had never done anything. And I am absolutely convinced that the reason why they wanted to work with us is because they were human beings that wanted to have human connection and wanted to interact with people that were willing to be authentic and genuine in a what we work quote unquote environment, but that people were so hungry for it that they wanted to do business with us. So I share that as like, that was one of my corporate highlights of my life, is like, wow, you can spread your light and it still lead to good things in a world that you kind of maybe are uncertain if there's value there. So have faith.
Yes. And always stay grateful.
Yes.
The power of gratitude. I love that so much. Yes. And I'll share my biggest spark has been surrounding myself with people who support me and believe in me and are there for me. That has been a major, major component to my growth and my evolution and my service in the world. Having sisters, soul sisters, and blood sisters as well that believe in me, and really making sure to be mindful around, taking in other people's opinions, and being discerning around the types of people that I choose to share some of my visions with. Right, I really like to share my creative visions with people that I know are supportive. And that's been a really important part of the journey of staying inspired. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. What a great call.
Yay.
Yeah. Good one. Thanks.
And I know you talked both about a little bit about your offerings, but real quick, when I give the names of your companies, how you can find them. I know it's in the show notes. We have links to all of your stuff, but Janus, tell us again the name of your company.
Our company is called NuWorld Nutritionals. That's NU World Nutritionals. We have a line of nutritional supplements, all geared for improving your brain, getting your mind right, getting your the power of positive thinking actually contained in a supplement. So it's
nice.
Yeah. So it's good stuff. Check it out in the show notes, and feel free to use the code SPARK for discounts on any product we have.
Awesome. Betsy, where do we find your journal?
I love that so much. The power of positive thinking in different forms, right? So my company is called Power Affirmation. You can find it at poweraffirmation.com. And it is a system and a process that takes us through journaling prompts and also through virtual training to be able to reprogram our belief systems about who we are and who we're choosing to become using affirmations, gratitude, self-inquiry, and in the virtual groups, many different practices of meditation and breath work and movement and group work to be able to really live our best lives. And of course, check it out. I also have a discount code on there as well for a journal, 10% off. Use Sparked for the discount code.
Yay. And I will share my YouTube channel. It's called Hug Nation, all sorts of topics that are overlap with some of the things we talk about today. And occasionally I do some coaching. So if you are resonating with the Hug Nation vibe, reach out to me and we will have a talk. Betsy, would you close us out with an affirmation?
Yes. I'm going to close us out with an affirmation that is in the form of a question. So oftentimes we think it's just a blanket statement, but affirmations can also be in the form of a question. So inspired by today's topic, the affirmation is, how can I share my gifts with the world in a way that will bring a positive impact, that is fun, that is joyful, that is prosperous? How may I share my gifts with the world today and every day in a way that is joyful, that is fun, that is impactful, that is prosperous? How may I share my gifts with the world today and every day in a way that is joyful, that is fun, that is prosperous, that is impactful? And so it is. Keep listening, keep being guided, keep following our hearts, and keep staying sparked.